we noticed that there are not so many experts from Lithuania and Estonia. So we decided that it's very necessary to introduce further how the evaluation of different projects in Horizon 2020 is done, and what will be maybe the changes in New Horizon Europe, and as well we would like to share the experience of the evaluators. So we have asked here today as well 2 evaluators to share their experience. So this is the background. And we have today 3 presenters, one from European Commission, introducing the general background and how it's all done. And then we have 2 evaluators, one from Estonia and one from Lithuania. So you're very welcome to join us. And now I would give the word to Brigitta.
Good afternoon, everyone. Really nice to meet all of you, even though virtually. However, this this format gives an opportunity to really bring a huge audience. We were overwhelmed actually by how many registered showed the interest in this event. Because there were some, I guess, some misunderstandings that, yeah, people from Thailand and Estonia, they thought that 1 p.m. is the local time, but yeah, it's 1 p.m. that's Brussels time, because yeah, we have participants not only from Estonia and Lithuania, though they are the majority, but we have some participants from 10 more countries. So that's the beauty of these online events. So welcome every one of you, like no matter whether you are from Estonia or from Lithuania or from other countries. I think all of you will hear some interesting insights from today's short webinar. And because there is such a huge interest and not everyone could actually participate today, we intend together with Estonian colleagues to make 1 or 2 more events similar on the same topic, but next year, already next year. So stay tuned, follow Lithuanian Liaison Office, follow the Estonian Liaison Office, and I hope you will have or your colleagues will have an opportunity to join us during next events. And before diving into the actual topic, we have one question for you, for all the participants. The question is, and I will ask Julia to help me with that. Yeah, how experienced are you? Yeah, let's monitor the audience a bit. Have you been an expert evaluator already, or you registered but never were invited to evaluate, or you have no experience? So could you all tick the right answer for you, and we'll see straight away the results. So a few more seconds. I clicked myself too. So Julia, can we see the results? Yeah, I think that's a perfect audience. So we have 74% that have never experienced any European Commission evaluation procedures or the database. So this event is really designed for you. So with that little survey, I give the floor back to Ulla.
Thank you. So you are exactly in the right place. And we have already 166 participants. Could we get the next slide, please, Julia? So here we have the program. And I think I will give now directly the word to Mr. Gordon Sutherland. But before that, I forget that we had 1 slide more. Please show that as well, Julia, please. So the instructions for Zoom, I think there is not much to say because you are already so experienced with Zoom meetings, I'm sure. But please write your questions in the chat. So I try to monitor the questions constantly here, and we take all the questions at the end of the event, so after all 3 presentations. And yes, if there is something pending what we cannot answer or we don't have enough time, we will do it in writing. So please, yes, just post your questions. Okay, but that's it from our side for welcome. And I would now give the floor to Mr. Gordon Sutherland, please.
Yeah, and while Gordon is preparing for his presentation, I will just mention that we will record his presentation, so the recording will be available afterwards. The testimonials from Estonian and Lithuanian colleagues will be really the testimonials that you will hear only here, but the slides we will share as well with the registered participants. Gordon?
Thank you, Brigitte. I hope you can hear me. Thank you very much also to Ule. First of all, I would like to say a great thank you that I was invited to this event through the network of national contact points. It's great. I do have to always start with an apology. I mean, the national contact points all around Europe for Horizon 2020 do a really great job supporting applicants, and there's a whole set of facilities, but no matter how many events I go to, I've always asked for simultaneous interpretation from Scottish into English, but they've never managed to provide that service. So I think hopefully that would be a novelty under Horizon Europe, that we could actually have that form of simultaneous interpretation. I will try and speak as clearly as possible for this presentation. I'm from Scotland, and just in case you are wondering, you are indeed in the right place. This is not an episode of Outlander. This is actually a presentation on the practical perspective on principles and procedures for evaluation under Horizon 2020, and with a little bit of perspective towards Horizon Europe, although that's all very much still under preparation, so I can't say too much about that. But I wouldn't imagine that there are going to be absolute massive changes. So without further ado, what I'd like to do is to move to the next slide and just introduce a little bit my presentation for the next half an hour. So actually, I'm from the Horizon 2020 Energy Unit at the Executive Agency for Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises of the European Commission. Just to give you an understanding of how that all works, I'm actually from the team which actually constituted the first executive agency of the European Union, established in 2005. And this was established with a view to implementing the calls for proposals so that the policy directorates could focus on their policies. And our particular team, although that's not relevant to necessarily your expertise, that shouldn't be a concern of yours. I just want to give the example of how our team is working in evaluations, which is fairly broadly typical of the type of evaluations which are done across the whole of Horizon 2020. Nevertheless, there are always little adaptations with respect to how many experts are needed, which expertise is needed, how long the evaluations last for, etc., etc. But the picture I will paint is the general underlying principles. I then have a set of slides which are something you can take back and look at afterwards, which is the role of the independent experts, the overall procedure that we follow, the evaluation process itself, and a few words on your expert contract and how it all works. But to be honest, I don't want to go into those nitty-gritty details of all of that today. I'd like to give you the framework and also try and get a message over about the experience of participating in Horizon 2020 evaluations. Then I would ask for the next slide, please. So indeed, to give you a bit of the story, and as an example, this is the team of people in the Executive Agency for Small and Medium-Sized Enterprises working on Horizon 2020 energy, in particular on the energy efficiency calls for proposals. Since 2005, we have probably now managed around about 25 calls for proposals. And I don't dare to even count the number of experts that we have contracted during that period. But to give you a bit of insight into how this team works, and again, there are variations across the Commission, but this team works, first of all, by working very, very closely hand in hand with our parent Directorate General, which is DG Energy, to develop the actual topics which are in the work programs. And so we work back and forward together with DG Energy before also the communication with all of the member states round about setting the priorities. We then launch, once the work program of priorities is adopted, we launch the calls for proposals. We run info days where we give information to applicants. We also prepare frequently asked questions, which we put on the portal. We respond directly also to the national contact points if you have questions to them. And then the task comes when people have submitted their proposals at the call deadline. When just before this deadline, we have actually thought, we're certainly going to need a lot of experts for this. We reach out to experts from the database, which is called EMI database, but you don't necessarily need to know this. You register in the portal, and we can find your CV there. And indeed, just to give you that broad picture, we know how many experts we need per proposal. We also know that we need to cover the whole of Europe. We recruit experts from all European member states and actually beyond, because there's no limitation on where an expert can come from. We absolutely make sure that there's no more than 10% of any experts on any call coming from one particular country. We also make sure that we have gender diversity, a panel which is fully gender diverse. And we are working to see that we have a rotation of experts over a period of 2, 3, and 4 years. So we will sometimes invite an expert for 1 year and then for another, and then they may stay off for a year or two, and then they are also again invited back. So we are constantly recruiting new experts. And that's why we really need always to have more and more experts in the database. So I will encourage you once, twice, 3 times to prepare your CV and put it in the database so that we can have experts to select from. I will give you a few tips and tricks on what to do, but I'll do that as we go through the presentation. Then under normal conditions, or before there was this COVID-19, we would allocate the proposals to you. You would look at them at home individually, because we want your individual opinion on each of the proposals. And then we would invite you to Brussels for a period of 1 or 2 weeks where you would join us. All of our team working as moderators, with a team normally in a typical year which has 350 proposals. We would typically have anywhere between 80 and 100 proposals just for our call for proposals. So you can imagine, with all of the calls for proposals which are across Horizon 2020, and I don't even know how many there are, we need thousands and thousands and thousands of experts to evaluate those proposals. How does it work in practice? Well, it's your opinion which is counting. The experts are the ones who select the proposals. I will be direct and honest. We don't just want you to come and say, that's a great proposal, you should fund it. No, when you come along, we will ask you, why should we fund this proposal? And we want to hear your opinion, and we listen to your opinion, and we will ask you, why is that your opinion? And we expect you to give a justification, because you're an expert in the field. And also, you will be amongst the group of experts. And that group of experts may be 3, 4, 5, sometimes even 7 experts from a multidisciplinary field where everybody has a different perspective. And what we're looking for there is that you listen to each other. You have your own opinion from your very specialized perspective, but you have to come together with a group of other experts to find a consensus and a common opinion on which are the best proposals for funding. And this is, I have to say, one of the most rewarding experiences during the year. Now, there are speakers afterwards. I hope they will not contradict me. But I really have to say, from our perspective, working in the European Commission, the weeks during the evaluations when we meet the experts, we listen to their opinions, and we get all together to choose the proposals which will be going ahead for future research, no matter what the field, are the most exciting periods of the year. That said, what happens is you will, at the end of that evaluation process, come up with a ranking list of proposals which are recommended for funding. And at that point in time, we ask you to say goodbye. We say thank you very much, and you have to forget everything that you've seen. It's a confidential process. You can't go out and talk about it. We will, of course, publish your name, but not linked to a specific call for proposals. Your name is always published, that we have contracted you as an expert, but we will not be saying which specific call for proposals it was linked to, because that would expose you and also expose the applicants to the call. And so you can certainly, you can put it on your CV, you can say you have worked for the European Commission as a independent external expert, but not to give the specific call for proposals on which you actually worked. So that's the overall process. And then generally, because we have 2, sometimes 3 or more calls per year, we will invite you back on a number of occasions, and you will become part of that body of experts who are helping to move European research forward. Now, that's all the exciting part, I have to say, of my presentation, because it truly is really good. But now I am obliged also to take you through some of the more mundane aspects. So I would ask for the next slide, please. And of course, I'm going to be asking, answering questions and here until the very end of the session. So if you have questions, you can put them in the chat, and I will respond at the end. So first of all, on your actual role as an expert, and I'm just checking my time. Yes, next slide, please. So as an independent expert, just to allow you to, you are actually working, as the name suggests, independently. And you evaluate proposals which are from one specific call, which is always based on your own expertise. You will be invited based on your expertise, which is indicated in your CV in the database. At this point in time, then I can give you the first tip. Don't just introduce your CV once and then forget about it and expect that we will invite you. No, because the research priorities for the last 7 years, like we're talking about Horizon 2020, are developing every year, year on year. Your professional expertise is also developing. You may change job. You may have some new expertise from some new project that you've worked on. So the recommendation is that you keep yourself informed about the research directions in your field, and you make sure that once a year you log on and you update your CV just once a year by indicating new activities which you've been doing, and making sure that your current employment is indicated clearly and up to date. And then, of course, within this context, once you're selected and contracted, you are responsible for carrying out that evaluation by yourself. It's your expertise that we want. We don't want you to subcontract it to somebody else, or to ask your son or daughter who's currently doing a PhD in a similar topic to do this. No, this is not allowed. It's your expertise, and you have to do the job. All of this will be done in the first instance, so in the old normal, first of all, done in the electronic system, at home or from your workplace, completing your evaluations. You will be guided through this process. You will be trained in how to calibrate your responses, and to make sure that you cover all of the different evaluation criteria, which I will tell you about later. You then submit this shortly before the time when you would normally come to Brussels, so that we have an overview of the opinion of everybody. And then we will ask individual experts to quickly draft common response from all of the experts. Or if there are divergent opinions, which there very often are, these will also be flagged, so that when you come to Brussels and we have our moderated discussions, you will sit down and discuss the things which you like about proposals and the things which you don't like, and listen to each other. Within that context of your independent expertise, you should always keep in mind that significant funding is being spent. Our latest call for proposals, just for this one call, which we were working on, is approximately 70 million euros. So at the end of the process, we are funding 45 or just over projects of between 1.5 to 2 million euros, and this is based on your input as an independent expert. Also extremely important is if you see any form of misconduct at any point in time or lack of transparency, then you should report this to us so that we can also address it. Just one final point, you do not need to comment on things like ethics, because indeed this is done. We do a separate ethics evaluation of every one of the proposals as well, and this is done by a dedicated ethics expert. Of course, if the people watching are actually ethics experts, you can register in the database as an ethics expert, and we will also be able to pick you up as an ethics expert for that particular task. Then I will take my next slide, please. And then there are some guiding principles. And this is really the set of rules which we adhere to throughout the process, and we expect you to adhere to and to report along the way if you see that these are not followed. The one I already mentioned is the independence. The second one is impartiality. That is, you have to treat each of the proposals you see equally, and you evaluate them based on what is actually written inside of the proposal. You can't imagine, oh, that would be really interesting if only they were doing something else. Or you can't imagine what they may be intended to mean. No, you read what's inside of the proposal. Normally, these are either 50 or 70 or 100 pages long, and you only read the text which is in the proposal. You can, of course, click on something on the web in order just to check an opinion or your opinion or see what the latest state of the art is, but you cannot access additional information provided by the applicants on some sort of website regarding their proposal. And this is the actual case. The next point, objectivity. You have to evaluate what is actually submitted based on its own merit of what's in the proposal, and not if certain changes were made or if improvements could be made. And you work on a principle of accuracy, basing your judgment on the official evaluation criteria, which I will explain shortly, and applying these criteria in a consistent manner across all of the proposals, independent of which country you come from. So, of course, you may find a proposal from your own country. I will get to that point. You can, of course, evaluate a proposal from your own country, yes, but not if you have a conflict of interest. And this we will come to in the next slide. So next slide, please. First of all, confidentiality. You have to maintain that confidentiality throughout the process and not discuss it with anyone at all, other than the staff of the European Commission who are managing the process. Or indeed, if you have to say to your boss, and I need to go to Brussels for 2 weeks and I have to take 2 weeks of holiday, is that okay? Yes, you can, of course, say this, and of course, your partner or your family, you can say you are going away, but you're not supposed to say which proposals you are working on. That has to be treated confidentially, and you cannot divulge the content of any of those proposals once you have seen them. You read them, and then you have to, although you will remember them, and this is the next tip, you will, if you are evaluating proposals, see the most amazing research ideas and concepts and teams of people. So you will have insight into absolutely what is happening in the field. Of course, you cannot and must not steal other people's ideas, but you're an expert in the field, and we're inviting you because we know you're already at that level of research expertise and knowledge. So we're not concerned that people are stealing ideas or going to submit a proposal the next year. This anyway, we would quite clearly find out. But it is the case that it's extremely exciting and interesting to be at the cutting edge of European research when you are an expert evaluator. And that's why I would say it's a fantastic job to do, even if only for a short period of time. At no point in time do you contact anybody in the consortium or any of the subcontractors or anybody indicated. And certainly you don't disclose names of your fellow experts that you were working with. You don't publish something on Twitter with a photograph saying, here we all are evaluating, you know, energy efficiency coal in 2020. No, certainly not. It's confidential, and you have to maintain this throughout the process. Next slide, please. So indeed, there is one piece of information there, which I hope is somewhere later in the presentation, but that is, of course, the conflict of interest. If it's not later in the presentation, I will quickly mention it. You do have to declare a conflict of interest during this process if you have one, and you will be given guidance on this, which is just basically to say that you don't know anybody in the proposals, you're not currently working with them, you haven't been prepared in the preparation of a proposal, you're not a member of the Horizon 2020 program committee, you know, all the things which could actually be seen not just by you, but by the outside world as being a conflict of interest, which would then indicate that this is not a transparent process, transparent and fair process, because that conflict of interest could indeed mean that you have a bias. So that's one thing which you will be asked at the beginning, you will be asked in the middle, and you will be asked at the end, and constantly asked to check that there is no conflict of interest. There are small cases where the agency or the commission services can decide that that's fine for you to participate. For instance, one of the rules is not having worked with an applicant in the last 3 years. If it was 2 years and 10 months ago, we will accommodate this within the size of the body of proposals. If we're evaluating 50 proposals, and you happen to have worked with someone on one proposal 3 years ago but never spoken to them again, then of course we will take that into account, and it's not considered as a conflict of interest. But we appreciate it if you come forward and flag it, and we will check each case one by one, and we do this very seriously and with a great amount of depth and effort. And our experts have become very good on our side at identifying conflicts of interest which are hidden amongst all of the proposals. As long as you are upfront and honest about this, then there is absolutely no problem, and I would foresee none. So it's not something that you should be concerned about. In particular, people often worry about evaluating proposals from their own country. As long as you're not collaborating with a particular applicant, or you don't know them on a personal level, then this is absolutely fine. There's no issue there. Next slide, please. Again, check my time a little bit. So just to give you an overview of our evaluation process, the part on this slide here, which is marked in green, is the part which is, I've mentioned a number of the steps, but I would just like to run through them very quickly. So the green part is the part which is related to you as an expert evaluator. The blue parts are the parts which we are doing. So we are receiving all of the proposals, checking that they are the right number of pages and the right content, the right call, that they're relevant, that they're in scope. And then we allocate them to you. You would normally receive, depending on the size of the proposals, anywhere between 6, 8, or sometimes even 10 proposals, which you are asked to evaluate individually at home. You then come to Brussels, or indeed, as we've done over the last year, we do this remotely, which is not as much fun, but okay, it's still very interesting. And you speak in a kind of Zoom meeting or a WebEx meeting, something like this. You speak with all your fellow experts. What's missing there are the nice chats that you can have in the corridor, or when you're getting a coffee, or when you get a cookie from the kitchen, which we normally have in Brussels. But unfortunately, until we develop a system which is even more interactive, we have these consensus groups which are in a virtual environment. Then there are various processes, one of which is a rotation of experts. So you won't sit with the same experts the whole time throughout a week or 2 weeks. You will actually be rotated with different experts looking at different proposals. And we do this in order to calibrate your opinion. And then at the end of the week, you come together in a panel review. and rank the proposals according to the scores and comments which have been given. And then the process is over. You sign it off, and this then goes through our internal processes before we contact the applicants and inform them that in about 15% of the cases or 20% of the cases that they were successful. In the other cases, well, they get a negative letter saying, well, not this time. Next slide, please. Then, just in an absolute nutshell, there are 3 evaluation criteria which you will work with and you will be informed about and trained on how to use them. These are the excellence, which is this a good idea? Basically, it's an excellent idea. There's the impact, which is the outcome and the change which we expect from the proposal. And there's the quality and efficiency of the implementation, which is the setup, the partnership, the budget, the planning, the work packages, and all of these things. You are asked to comment on these individually and then as part of a group. And you will also be briefed by our services on how to evaluate certain specific parts, such as the impact, which is always specific to each of the topics on the Horizon 2020. And so we will give you a number of briefings before you actually do this evaluation, so that you understand what's actually the meaning of the specific text in the call. Now, I did say that we do info days and we prepare frequently asked questions. So to help you evaluate these, we give you the same information which we gave to the applicants in the info day, and we gave you the same frequently asked questions. And we work together with you just to make sure that we have a common interpretation and we are being fair to all of the proposals which are being evaluated. Next slide, please. So just to move on then to the next and final, I have that's a future expert which just joined us. So that's there'll probably be new criteria for the framework program for that expert. We have specific processes and the main steps. I'll quickly run through these for you. Next slide, please. As you can see, that's again an overview of just how everything comes together. You have the proposal. It's looked at by a number of experts. They all write their individual report because that's their opinion. Then this is sealed. You can't change this any longer. It's your opinion before you discuss with anybody else. And then invariably, everybody has different opinions. And you come together in a nice and very interesting discussion in a consensus group. You listen to what somebody else, all of the others have to say. Invariably, for a small period, everybody disagrees. And then after you've listened and thought it through and compared your expertise, actually, we have seen through our whole process that we never once had a case where there was no consensus of the consensus group by the end of the discussion. And so that's excellent. We get a consensus report, and this is what is then going to be sent to the applicant as the outcome of their evaluation. Next slide, please. Then just to say 2 points. One I already mentioned was the ethics experts. So they are doing a separate evaluation on the ethical content. It depends on the scientific topic, of course, but they look at all different aspects around about ethics. We have at the same time normally 2 observers who are following this whole process, and they are appointed by the agency to monitor what we're doing. Although we don't choose the actual experts, they're chosen by our parent, the Directorate General, and they come to any meeting they want to come to. They follow the processes, they listen, they discuss with the evaluators, the independent experts. And just to check, first of all, that everything is running smoothly. They then prepare a report with ideas after checking that our conduct and your conduct has been appropriate and fair for all of the evaluations. And if they see something necessary, which is usually about improving effectiveness or efficiency or different ways of exploring ideas, they make suggestions which we then take up in the next year and the year after. They don't actually evaluate the proposals. They don't comment on the content. They're not experts in the scientific or technical topic. but they are there to monitor the overall process. And throughout this process, we encourage the independent experts to speak with them, share any concern that they may have. And also, if you, when you participate in the evaluation, see something positive, please also share positive things with the observers. Next slide, please. So I think this brings me almost, yes, to the end of my presentation. A few words on your expert contract and what that involves. So the next slide, please. In general, although this is not always the case, I've more focused on the evaluation of proposals, but you can also be recruited from the database to focus on reviewing ongoing projects, and that's something that we also do. But in most cases, your contract is issued by the European Commission's Research and Executive Agency, who does this task for all of the calls for proposals. You receive for this, or you are entitled to receive, because your contract will actually say, if you wish to receive payment, you may ask for it. I have to say, I never yet had an expert who didn't ask for the money, and quite rightly, there's a job being done for the European Commission. But there are cases maybe where because of your job, for some reason, you're not allowed to have additional income, but you might still want to be involved in this process because of the scientific and technical interest, and so it's still valuable for you to participate. And so you receive a lump sum of 450 euros for each working day, calculated to the nearest half day. Normally on the Monday, we're starting about 9:30 or 10 o'clock, and on the Friday, to allow people to go home, we finish at 4 o'clock. But these are calculated as full days, and you receive a daily allowance. For people who are far from Brussels, this is 92 euros per day, plus an accommodation allowance of 100 euros per night for your hotel. Which also allows you to arrive on the day before and the day after, so that your expenses are covered, and you get this and any reimbursement of your travel expenses, whether that's flights or train, or if you're in a difficult location, also the taxi to get you to your nearest station. These are the basic contract essentials. Round about that, if anybody wanted to do some, typically we would invite you for 1 week to come and work in Brussels. Sometimes people come for 2 weeks because their expertise is on a bigger topic, and normally you would have, as I said earlier, between 6 and 8 or 9 proposals which you would evaluate from home. Depending on the length of the proposal, you will have half a day per proposal. For the shorter ones, and for the really large, complicated proposals, you receive one day for a proposal. A typical expert payment, I would say, roughly is in the region of 2,000 or 2,500 euros for each evaluation, roughly, including the time working at home and the time coming to Brussels. And then in addition, there's also the payment in relation to the expenses. I think, no, I can't move. I need the next slide. Sorry, I was going to move it myself. Next slide, please. Yes, and then I return to these guiding principles. I'm not going to go through them again, but we always say them at the beginning, in the middle, and at the end. Independence, impartiality, objectivity, accuracy, consistency. But above all of that, it's about participating, enjoying, contributing, meeting people, and really delivering on something which is advancing the research agenda. And I can also give you one, not necessarily a tip, I think this is actually a warning, a disclaimer or a warning. You never know what might happen if you become an evaluator. So I was an expert evaluator in 2005. And indeed, while I visited Brussels, I learned of a job opportunity for which I applied. And in 2006, I moved to Brussels, and I have been working for the European Commission since 2006, working on calls for proposals. So you never know how anything could develop. You start by going to evaluate proposals, and it ends up changing your life. So I suggest that you submit your CV, and I'm here to answer any questions. And then there's one more slide, I think, which is simply to say thank you very much do apply to become an expert. And here's the link if you would like to put your CV and visit at least once a year to keep up to date, which is the biggest tip I can give you. Thanks very much for your attention, and I pass the floor just 2 minutes late.
Thank you very much. I will put this link to the chat as well, so you can already open it. Thank you very much, Gordon. And I think we will go now on with the presentations of evaluators, and 2 of the evaluators agreed to share their experience. And I think I have been monitoring the questions here in the chat as well, and some of the questions have been already answered by Gordon. And maybe some of the questions will be already answered by the experts as well. But if there is something pending at the end, we will have some extra time dedicated for the questions. It was a question about access to scientific resources or databases. Gordon, maybe I would address this question to you. Is it provided the access to experts to some certain databases, for example, for scientific articles or something?
Thanks for the question, but I'm not sure in every case, but certainly in the cases that I'm aware of, no, there's no other access. In fact, you use your knowledge and you look at the proposals in an almost closed, hermetic, let's say, environment. In the beginning, we even used to recommend that people didn't go on the internet to find out further information. But in certain cases, this was also essential. But some of the experiences, because I know that in the different parts of Horizon 2020, and indeed the other programs which use the database, because not only Horizon 2020 which uses the database, there are other approaches. So it could be that the Research Council, for instance, gives access to other information, and I'm not aware of that. But in general, to the best of my knowledge, no. I take that opportunity of that point just to say that when you do submit a CV, you also have to indicate the programs which you are interested in, and you would need to flag the specific program so that we have access to your CV. Sometimes, indeed, we see, in our case, Horizon 2020, we see people who have indicated other programs, and then we contact the experts directly and say, can you update your CV in the database, because we would like to recruit you. But at that time of registration, you should indicate the program that you're interested in working on.
Thank you. I
maybe
think
Heidi, perhaps Heidi had the other experience, or from the Marie Curie.
Yeah, I can just comment that no, we don't have any extra access to any database or the articles. And well, if an expert works at university, let's say, and has an access, then of course it can be used. But as you said, Gordon, it's more on the knowledge the expert already has, not on the knowledge what I can, learn reading the articles.
I think you already both answered to that question as well in your presentations and in your replies, that interdisciplinary experts are needed. Then about the time, the question has been a bit specified here, like how much time it is typically needed to prepare individual evaluation report. I think Gordon mentioned that it was like half a day per short project and 1 day for longer project, but Gordon, maybe you could comment a bit more here.
Again, just to add, because I realize there are differences between programs, but I would say that for a 50-page proposal, it's about half a day, and for a 100-page proposal, it's about 1 day. And then other programs which maybe have a single stage or very short, two-stage submissions with a very short first stage proposal, maybe experts are asked to do more proposals during that period. there's a standard table actually in the contract. When the contract is set up, depending on the size of the proposal, then then the time is allocated accordingly, and there's not much room for maneuver. I think what was also interesting, which I didn't mention, and this was mentioned by Heidi for the remote phase, was that yes, maybe you have 3 weeks or 1 month of duration in order to look at these proposals, but the actual working time will probably be, depending on the number of proposals, maybe five working days, maybe.
Thank you. And I received a question about the database as well, that if an expert has been registered to the database, do they have to offer themselves or they will be asked? I think you already answered that they will be asked, yeah, to evaluate some proposals where they have been, where they see that your expertise is very necessary. And it goes together very well with the next questions. Do you have in the Commission some guidelines? What kind of background the expert should have, like a PhD, or what kind of working experience?
No, it's not specified in this manner. It's a trust-based scientific peer-to-peer approach, and the experts are generally known in their fields because the experts which we are recruiting or contracting are in a position to evaluate cutting-edge research proposals, and so they will normally have some published papers, but it's not necessarily at the level of a PhD, because not all proposals are, depends on the level of research and innovation and which program, because some programs are purely market-based instruments, and indeed it could be business administration or exploitation or communication and dissemination, which is actually important for one proposal as part of a multidisciplinary approach. And that point is absolutely valid. We need all forms of expertise, and indeed at different levels. So no, there's no guidance on that it should be a, let's say, a PhD or master level.
I think here maybe Aušra and Heidi can share their experience as well, because they have been working together with other experts. Could you confirm that their background was different than yours? That there are very many different experts with different backgrounds.
Yes, I can confirm that indeed. And also from my own experience, I have quite different, let's say, diplomas in my drawer. And this, as much as I understood or have learned from this process, is that the more you present yourself as an expert who can very easily move between the disciplines, the more you are attractive as an evaluator. So even if you don't have, let's say, 3 or 2 different degrees from different fields, then what I would recommend is to stress these projects and these activities that are taken in cross-disciplinary or transdisciplinary areas. Perhaps Aušra can comment also from her experience.
Yes, from my experience, I can confirm that the experts are from different backgrounds and different education level, and well, they can come from SMEs, they can come from universities, and you don't necessarily to have PhD or other degree to be an expert. And what is more, in the same evaluation, you can meet an expert who does that for, I don't know, the 10th time, and the expert who is an evaluator for the first time. So the diversity of the experience of evaluation and in different backgrounds and different educational levels or kinds of education. It's a mix in evaluation, in any evaluation. So that's not an obstacle to, well, to be of different different kinds of industry, university, and so on.
Thank you. And it reminds me that what Brigitta mentioned in the beginning as well, that this is the first event on the topic of evaluation, that we plan to do something as well what is more dedicated to evaluate the SMEs related projects. And most probably it will happen in February, but we still have to confirm the presenters and the program exactly, but follow our channels. We have one more question. It's someone mentioned right to react, that in Horizon Europe, will it be something like right to react, that the people who are connected to the proposal can react to the specific comments of evaluators. Gordon, could you comment that?
At this point in time, yes, it's a good point. I would only say that because all the processes are currently being put into place, I've also understood that there may be a form of pilot, first of all, round about this, and then maybe at the later stage implemented. But of course, the decision-making process is still ongoing, in which case it could be implemented from the very beginning of Horizon Europe. The last I heard was that there would be two pilots which were running on specific calls for proposals to allow there to be this right to react to the comments of the evaluators, without knowing, of course, who the evaluators are. Yes.
Thank you. So I didn't see any additional questions. If you have something still what you would like to ask, please put it in the chat. Or Brigitta, do you notice something?
I have a question myself. It's addressing Gordon. You mentioned about observers. Do you select observers as well from the same database, or can you tell me more about how you select them?
It's a very good question, Brigitta. I would need to check, but I'm almost absolutely sure we select from the same database. Can I get back to you on this? Yes, thank you very much. Thank you.
Actually, I have one question as well about the experts list. So far, with my colleagues who are NZPs on different fields, we have been monitoring the participation of Estonian experts, so we could involve them in our info days, for example. Will you continue to publish those lists still in the new Horizon Europe as well?
Again, Ulla, sorry, you mean the publication of those who have been contracted?
Exactly.
Again, I don't have the specific set of rules. Just to explain, because we are implementing and not developing the rules, then this level of implementation has not yet arrived at us. So I could only imagine that in the name of full transparency, we would continue to publish the names of the experts who have participated. Again, without linking them to a specific call for proposals. But again, we wait to see the actual rules for implementation of Horizon Europe. It's not far. I mean, it's only a few days since we now have the MFF, and we can adopt the work programs and move forward, and hopefully the calls for proposals, which may be actually linked to something which was one of the questions earlier. Just to say, there was a question about is there a deadline for application, and the answer, of course, is no. There is no deadline, but nevertheless, with a whole rollout of Horizon Europe calls for proposals expected late spring or early summer, then people would be well advised to be putting their CV in the database. I think people deserve a break over the festive season, but early in the year or as soon as possible, it would be a good idea.
Thank you. This is a very good tip. And I think we can close the questions and answers session here. And now we still have 2 questions for you.
Yeah, Julia, could you help us with the little survey? It's exactly to monitor whether this webinar served as an inspiration to register for the European Commission database. So that's one question. And the other short question is about the monitoring the quality of our event. Because as Julia mentioned, we plan to do some similar events next year. So it's good for us to know whether that's really needed. So we would appreciate very much if you could answer this little survey. Do we have the results? Or, yeah, these are complicated questions.
And the future events will be also in English. So everyone is very welcome to participate.
Yeah, please, Julia, can you show the results as they are? Yeah, maybe. Okay. Well, I think it's still a positive impact. I hope that we made during this short webinar. And yeah, thank you for a good evaluation of this webinar in general. Yeah, that's basically, yeah, ending 10 minutes earlier than intended, which is perfect. You will have more time to go and actually look at the link now where you have to register if you want to be invited. And as Aušra and Heidi mentioned, well, that's the first step. You need to register. And then, yeah, then you can polish your CV and do all the clicks and that will help you to be noticed by the European Commission specialists. But with that, I want to thank you once again from the LINO office side for being an active audience, really engaged in participating in the surveys, giving up, posing the questions. And I wish you a Merry Christmas, despite all the lockdowns and whatever, but maybe that will be a good occasion to find this half a day to go and actually do something for your future and to register for to be the expert for the Commission. So we're back to you.
Yes, thank you very much from my side as well. I really want to thank the presenters and as well LINO office for great cooperation. And yes, so please register yourself and we will see again at our next web events.